Hello, my dearest friends, my dearest beautiful co-creator souls of love and light. This is Nanari, Princess of the Sea, coming to you with a new video. There are so many things in my heart right now that I felt to share with you. I'm going to start with kind of encapsulating something that occurred yesterday because it ties in with today. For those of you who follow me on Facebook or are friends with me on Facebook, you saw my post yesterday related to this. Yet there's more because there's things that unfolded today as well. Yesterday and into today was and is the 3-month anniversary for me of my death, my transition. Valentine's Day this year into the 15th of the month was when I went through all that I went through. Those of you who have watched my videos, have read my posts on Facebook and whatnot, you know what occurred for me in my death. And I thought it very interesting that yesterday, or actually the day before yesterday, I had connected with the UU Church, the Universalist Church that's here. And I had gone to a few services when I first moved back here. But really, I think it was in January was the last time I had gone, just before I got really sick in January, and then subsequently everything that happened with my death transition in February. So I haven't, in all these months, obviously, been able to get back. First of all, I don't have a car, so I don't have a means to get there because it's quite a ways away. It's down the island. So I couldn't even walk it if I wanted to in my most healthy condition. My little scooter wouldn't go that far. And I really haven't had any major connections here, as many of you know. And so I haven't been able to go to services. Now, I just recently connected with a small services group that is actually here in town, and I started to go to them. I went to them once, did not go last weekend. Mother's Day weekend was kind of hard for me. And then today, I ended up going to the UU Church. So when I retouched base with, through the newsletter, had seen about a potluck and then a coffee gathering of people to get together here on the north end of the island. And then also for services, I was trying to reach out, to be able to come to services. And I connected with a gentleman who proceeded to tell me that, oh, by the way, tomorrow, which would have been yesterday, we are having a meeting, to get together, people in the congregation, and it is at Whidbey General Hospital, the cafeteria. And upon reading it, I sat in irony with it because I was like, oh my God, that's the very hospital that, I died in and was life lighted from to Providence Hospital in Everett exactly 3 months. The meeting was yesterday, was exactly 3 months ago. So yesterday, upon going there, it was a bit of an eerie experience for me, and I had a lot of emotions that came up with it. I thought it was ironic, and then somebody on Facebook who I'm friends with had posted, it was full circle. And very much it was bringing it back full circle. I was sitting with it for, okay, why did this happen? Why of all places? Because they meet at various places. In fact, what was it, a month or two ago when I had considered trying to go, I think it was about a month ago, they were meeting at the Chinese restaurant, literally right down the road from my place here. And I didn't make it due to the weather, and I really wasn't feeling up to it. I didn't have enough strength. So they meet at various places, and of all places, of all times, on that specific day, it was like, what is the universe saying to me? What is Source saying to me? And someone who I mentor and is a friend on Facebook had said, maybe it's because you're meant to help those people in hospital. My immune system is compromised, so that's a consideration for me. I can go, but probably on a limited basis to volunteer, because if I catch another virus or whatever, even being in, normal human contact, like going to the UU church and whatever, I, run the risk of picking something up. But being in an environment in hospital where disease, if you will, is prevalent, and viruses are prevalent more so than any other place, it's probably something that, I may have to consider another method. And I've been toying with the idea, and I've already received inspiration. Many of you know that I have 2 books that I'm getting ready to publish and come out with, because after this death, so many people came to me and said, you have so much wisdom, you've posted on Facebook, you've helped me, your videos have helped me. I would really like to have, your wisdom in an actual book. So I've written several books, and I have several books in process, but I haven't really published a book in many years now. And so not only is it 1 book, it's now 2 books. It's going to be a 2-volume set. And I'm hoping to release that for the full moon next week, for the Wesak full moon. And yet I've also felt that calling to write a book about this near death, or this death experience, and to call it either You're Never Alone or You're Not Alone, and receive that wisdom through Source, and ironically also through Wayne Dyer, in my connection with him when I was on the other side of the veil during this death, among other things that I received. And it was very interesting, because going back to the hospital yesterday, it both felt eerie, but also felt light. I had seen a woman there who I absolutely love. And Chelsea, if you ever see this video, God bless you. She was one who I connected with at the UU church when I first went there. And she had told me, which was right around the time of when I went and had my death, my transition, and came back, that she was going to be out of town. She was going, I think, out of the country. And I had forgotten where she said she was going, but that she wouldn't, see me for a few months. And ironically, I didn't end up seeing her for a few months because of what happened. And so she was there at the gathering. There was probably about close to 30 of us, I think, there. We took up most of the cafeteria, actually. And even one of the workers had come in and joined in on the fun, and sat with us and conversed with us. And everyone there was so welcoming. And Chelsea didn't know, and everybody didn't really know about what had happened and why I hadn't been back. And when I shared with them, Chelsea hugged me. She blessed me. She said, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you came back. And everybody was blessing me and saying, I'm glad you're back. Obviously, you came back for a reason. And that was very deep and touching to me, because one of the things I really haven't had here, or in general, since everything that happened to me 2.5 years ago, when I lost my home and my soul family and everything that I had in Canada, and having to come back here, was that sense of connection, that sense of camaraderie, that sense of companionship, that sense of friendship. And it felt really good. And I'm deeply appreciative and grateful to everyone in the congregation for welcoming me back, and for the love and support and the fun we had yesterday. And so it worked out that this gentleman who had been able to take me to the meeting also was able to take me to services this morning. And I had felt called and compelled. It's something that it calls me rather than me calling it, or rather than me feeling like I have to do this, in the sense of like trying to make something happen. So I kept getting visions, and I didn't sleep much last night about how I was supposed to go up there and speak today, because there's a point in the service where we are asked to share our joys and our sorrows, and to light a candle, just as the unity flame is lit, for the service. And so I knew I was going to go and speak, and I didn't know why I was being told by Source, God, Spirit, that I was meant to speak, but I needed to go up and say something, share with people. So Ironically, and I'm going to, forgive me, I have to put on my readers. That's what happens with age. Um, the service actually was called Come On Up to the House. And if any of you know that song by Tom Waits, the service was about that. And it was a beautiful rendition of it done by a gentleman named Ken and a daughter of another member of the congregation. And she played the violin and he played the guitar. And it was quite poignantly beautiful, the rendition that they did. And I have heard Willie Nelson's version of it that the minister talked about in her talk today, and other versions as well. And if any of you know the lyrics and the content of what her talk was about, touched me very deeply. Because before I even knew what she was going to say, we have this opportunity to come up and speak. And I came up and I shared about what happened to me 3 months ago and how this is the 3-month anniversary and how what little support system that I had here had crumbled and how I was very much alone. Now I know I've had all of you in Facebook land and on the internet and everything else, and you've been wonderful. But as you well know, I have had very little physical contact in terms of support, and many of you know that I ended up having to do this all alone from not being able to walk pretty much after 11 days in hospital with all of this, that I literally came back to living alone and had nobody here to make meals for me, nobody to help me. I wasn't in any shape to really do anything, and yet I had to end up doing all of this on my own. And so I shared a little bit about that, and then shared my joy about out of it being, the rebirth that I'm going through and the wellness fair that I'm creating and the books that I'm now coming out with and things of that nature. And then the minister, we had other things in the service, but then when it came time for the minister to speak, she spoke about the lyrics of the song, and as many of you know, song is my heart. Music is my heart, and for so many ways and in so many reasons. And so in those reasons and ways, it touched me very deeply, the things she said, and she came to a point where she spoke about how she had remembered the group that she had been talking about loneliness. And yes, I understand the higher spiritual perspective that we're never alone, and that's actually, the title of the book I'm going to write about this most recent experience at some point. Yet from a physical standpoint, earthly standpoint, I went through a point where I was physically very much alone, and I do live alone, and I, have felt very alone through much of this process the last 3 months. And even though you have been wonderful online and there have been other people, who, here and there, I have, from a physical standpoint, felt moments of being very alone. And she talked about loneliness, and she talked about this, the lyrics to the song is like, come on up to the house, that sense of friendship, that sense of compassion, that sense of people reaching out to how may I serve, which many of you know, I say that all the time in what I write and, what I live, what I be, what I share with you is how may I help, how may I serve. She made a distinction between the difference between what she felt was help and what she felt was serving. And I liked her distinction. She spoke about how when we help someone, we feel like that they're less than we are. Whereas serving is that we're meeting on equal footing and we see someone as an equal. And so I did like that. However, to me, help and serving are the same thing. I don't see anyone as less than me when I'm helping them, nor do I feel like I'm less than if somebody is helping me. I feel that sense of equality. We're meeting on equal level. We're equals, and we're all here to help each other. And each of us have special, unique gifts. when she talked about that sense of friendship, that sense of come on up to the house, it hit me and I started to cry because I realized I really haven't had that. I haven't had that from a physical standpoint as somebody here who said, come on up to the house. And when I started to have that, that's when all of this happened with me being sick. And, you know, that support left. And so it really touched me very deeply. And then what happened after service completely floored me. I don't know how many, I lost count of the congregation. There was quite a lot of us there. The church was pretty full, and I don't know how much the church holds, but I had many that came to me saying and blessing me, others that weren't there at the meeting yesterday. You know, thank you for coming back here. I'm so glad you came back, you know, to this earth. I'm so glad you're doing okay. You know, bless you for coming back. And I also connected with two gentlemen whose partners actually brought them to me. And both of them had near deaths. And the one had his wife who had transitioned. And I could tell and sense in feeling his heart just in the things that he was saying and listening to the message behind the message of his heart, that even though he was standing there with his partner, the pain of his wife's passing, transitioning, from an earthly perspective, I recognize that pain very well because of what happened to my original twin soul. And the process of grieving that I took 20 years to complete. And it will be almost 30 years that, you know, he's been gone. And I could see that pain, and it had been 5 years for him, he said. And we made a very deep connection, something that I was looking for. And we, you know, I gave him my contact information and let him know to contact me and whatnot. And then I ended up talking with a woman who brought her partner over who had a near death. And he said, well, you know, do you know about IANS? And I do know about IANS. I think it's IANS, I believe it is. And it's a near-death experience group. And I believe they're worldwide, if I remember correctly. And I've heard of them. I don't know them in depth or anything, but I have heard of them. And he said, you know, there's a meeting in Seattle, and it happens once a month. And of course, my first thought in my head is, you know, I don't have a car. I don't have any way to get there. And they offered to take me for the June meeting. And they're like, he's like, you know, you'll be around people who get it and get you, and that understand this. And he said to me, he said, you know, you did come back here for a reason, and just know it's going to be okay. And this was after I told him about what it was that my life was like and how hard it was for me to come back to it because I live well below poverty level. I'm so grateful and appreciative for what I have, yet at the same moment, from basic living standards, you know, I don't live at that level. And so it, you know, has been a struggle for me in many ways being back here on this earth. And when he said that to me, and when the other gentleman blessed me, and he said, you know, it took a lot of courage for you to go up there and say what you said today. And I know how hard it must have been for you to share something so personal. And I just told him, I said, I don't know, it wasn't me. I felt so compelled. It was sourced through me. That's the only way I can explain it. If it were my personal preference, I wouldn't have gotten up and said anything. I wouldn't even be doing this video. It was very hard for me to do that video when I had just gotten out of hospital, 2 days, when I looked so deathly sick. That many of you have seen that video I did. But it was like something was pulling me. That vision was pulling me. That call was pulling me. It wasn't really me. I can't really explain it anything other than that. And what these gentlemen shared with me touched me very deeply, especially coming from the divine masculine. Because I have a lot of women who come to me. I have a lot of divine feminine who come to me. I do have a lot of divine masculine who come to me, for mentoring and stuff like that as well. But to hear from a personal standpoint on a friendship, camaraderie, compassionate basis like that really touched me deeply. And so I'm very appreciative of that. And so I'm sharing all of this with you because 3 months after this, even though I still struggle in processing everything, and the one gentleman said, look, mine was in 1988, and there's still things, I process through. That said, this overwhelming sense of love and friendship and companionship that I felt in the last 2 days is something that I really appreciate. And then just before I did this video, a person who lives here in town, she messaged me saying, oh, I would love to go to the UU church. Perhaps maybe you could come with me. Thank you. It means a lot to me. I have not had that sense of connection. And so it's ironic because it's the very core of my teachings. Wayne Dyer said that he had all of these things happen to him because he came here and was told by Source or Spirit that he came here to teach self-reliance. And for the majority of my life, I've always had to end up doing things on my own. And I started to wonder on the way back here today, I was like, well, gee, Wayne, am I like you? Am I supposed to be teaching self-reliance? And, I could hear him very clearly saying to me what he said to me when I was on the other side of the veil 3 months ago today. And I talked with him, which was, no, you're not here to teach self-reliance. That was my job. I did that. That was my life purpose when I was here. Your life purpose is to teach about connection and to teach how what the minister talked about today in her talk, which was how generally, and she was speaking in generalizations, that we as a collective humanity consciousness have forgotten about that sense of friendship, forgotten about that sense of camaraderie and companionship and, reaching out to people. We're so either self-absorbed or, she didn't use those words, but this was, the general context of what she was talking about, that we've forgotten about that. And I could hear Wayne Dyer really saying to me, that's what you're here to teach. That's why you stepped forward today and spoke, even though it was very hard for you to get up there. That's why you're doing this video right now. That's why you do the things that you do and the lives that you've touched all over the globe, all over the world, is because you're teaching people about how to reconnect not only with themselves, but to reconnect and love each other. And to remember compassion and to remember compassionate listening and loving kindness and kindness speech and that sense of friendship and the come on up to the house. I'm that way with people my entire life. I've always been that way. And it's, even regardless if they've been that way to me. And so I want to share with you that I know I am here for a reason. And for those of you whose lives I've touched, someone who I mentor, Kim, Maria, who's posted on Facebook several things, Lady Nikila, you know who you are. All of you, you know who you are. Lady Leanne, Patricia in Scotland. There's so many of you who have come to me. Shebel in Egypt. Frank, I think you're maybe in the Dominican Republic or something. All of you who have come to me, and countless others, and I'm sorry if I'm forgetting your names, have come to me and said that I've touched your life in some form or fashion. Thank you for seeing me. And thank you for that connection. And how ironic that I had posted about the difference between internet connection and personal one-on-one connection last night, not even knowing what this, I knew the song, of course, Come On Up to the House, but I didn't know that that was also the sermon. I didn't really read the newsletter in that sense Friday to see that that's what it was about. And of course I had no idea, like everybody else, I had no idea what she was going to share. So I am sharing all of this with you to remind you for those who are closest to you in your life, and all the way out to even what this minister spoke of in her talk today, the homeless person. I've lived through that. I was homeless for the better part of the last 2.5 years. I was homeless. And the homeless person, all the way out to people that, we considered strangers, which we're not strangers to each other because we're all one. We're all connected. Remember that sense of compassion, that sense of loving kindness, that sense of reaching out to help, or how may I serve? Because we are all equal. We are all one. And really, deep down, all of us, including me, no matter how spiritual we are, we're here in human form to experience this experience. We came here, we chose this soul agreement to be here, even if sometimes we forget what that soul agreement is or why. And the humanness of experience we're to have just as much as the spiritual. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, and through that human being experience, we remember the spiritual being that we are. We rest in it, remember, embrace, and soulfully treasure. And in that soulfully treasuring, it's about connection, online and offline. Feeling the love telepathically, energetically with people, but at the same moment holding someone, being there for them, reaching out to help, friendship, compassion, connection. So may you be this friendship, connection, compassion, and all the attributes of love. I love you all, and thank you for being a beautiful presence in my life, on or offline, or both, because it is both and. I love you all, and I appreciate you all. Thank you. I love you. Estavo.